Hello, my lovely friends. Here we are again for our Tuesday talk at the Perfect Latte. Cheers! With my turmeric tonic tea. And what do you have in your cup, Scott?
I have a cup of amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. Did I say it's amazing? It is a 3 shots of espresso and vanilla latte.
And it looks beautiful, it smells amazing. So I'm having my turmeric tonic tea and he's enjoying his latte while we talk. So remember guys, this is raw and real, no prep. We just get together and we discuss what are the ways we are creating value. There's our Han, our sweet little girl, the owner of the Perfect Latte. So what kind of values are we creating for the world, for our society? How are we supporting local? How are we best using our time? And here is Mr. Scot Moran. I'm so grateful to him, so grateful to him for his trust. He is like the perfect friend anyone can have. He's so authentic. He is unbiased for someone who is coachable, okay, who loves to learn. He is the guy. He's constantly pouring. He's constantly pouring whatever knowledge he has gained, and he has a lot of experiences. And don't be fooled by his humility. He is such a humble guy, I tell you. He wears a lot of hats, and today this is his one.
It's a cowboy.
Yes, and today he'll be talking about one of the hats that he wears, like metaphorically, which is what is networking and what is building relationships. How is building relationship at the core of networking for whatever reason, for business purposes, for philanthropic causes, or whatever. Whenever we are meeting up, what is the core value? And guess what? Every Monday he teaches us free. He gives his time for free so that people can learn and just learn to do whatever they are doing a whole lot better. Okay? So please start by telling us and sharing with our viewers what it is you have been doing for the last few Mondays.
Well, each Monday in Richmond, Sugarland area, we do a free networking skills development workshop. And simply put, we help develop the networker into a more professional, intentional networker. Now, most of the behavior that I see in networking groups, as I visit the various networking groups in the community, is there's a lot of marketing going on. Now, there's nothing wrong with marketing. Businesses need good marketing to stay in business. But networking is not marketing. Networking is an entirely different platform of relationship building that has absolutely nothing to do with marketing. So when I see the behaviors of people striving to get more business, and they're coming into networking groups and they're pitching to the various networking members, my heart goes out to them. I want to pull them aside and say, hey, there's a much better way to do what you're trying to do. Marketing is great, sales presentations are great, and they're essential to any good business product or service. But in the networking environment, when you're networking in networking groups, there's certain characteristics and behaviors that absolutely must take place, or members are going to sell to each other and then they leave. There's no value in the networking experience as they see it because they're not really networking. So they've mislabeled networking activity as networking activity, and it's marketing activity and sales activity. And again, those things are important, but in a networking environment, it is about investing time to develop a relationship, and I like to call it a long dollar. There's a short dollar gain in giving a sales presentation or a marketing presentation, and you make a sale. The long dollar gain in networking is you may not get business immediately. You may not ever get business, but you're from the members of the networking group. But if you do it right, they're going to grow to know, like, and trust you, and they're going to give you their clients that they're doing business with because they know how much you've invested in the relationship and they feel compelled to reciprocate. So although they may not need your service, or it may only be one person who you would make a sale to, they want to give you all the sales business that comes your way, so they will begin referring the people that they know, like, and trust to you to keep you in business. So although networking, there's no expectation of gain. You're not expecting I'm going to go in and I'm going to invest in this relationship so that I can get something back from it. But just like the law of gravity, you could drop something on the floor. You could intentionally hold something up and drop it. And no matter how much you will it, no matter how much you intend for it not to drop, it's going to drop because it's a law. Well, the law of reciprocity in networking environments is exactly the same way. If you give without any expectation of gain, you begin to engage the law of reciprocity. Now, how well it works? Just like the law of gravity, if you drop something from 2 inches, it's still going to drop. But if you drop something from, say, the height of the Empire State Building, the impact is so great that if you dropped a penny from the Empire State Building, it would drop and put a hole in the cement about a foot deep is what they say, because of the velocity and the impact. So networking is the same way. You can network from 2 feet off the ground, or you can network and invest and invest and invest in relationships and continue to climb, just like the Empire State Building. And when it happens, the impact of your participation and your involvement and your engagement in that networking environment, the impact is so great that you will not be able to contain the business that can come from those relationships, because people will feel compelled to give back to you in the ways that you've given and invested in them. So that's why I do the free networking skills development workshops. They're free. Now, how can somebody in business give away something for free? I'm making an investment, an intentional investment in developing true networkers in the networking community so that I can engage the law of reciprocity. They will feel so compelled to give back because they've learned so much and they've received results from the activities that they're doing that it would be unfathomable for them to refer somebody else for what I do. So I like to say, my wife likes to call it business falls from the sky. Some days business falls out of the sky. We're not expecting it. We didn't intend. We were at the beach. We were doing what we do and enjoying life, and business fell out of the sky because the law of reciprocity returned back to us. So that's more of the true spirit of networking. It's not marketing. It's not selling. It's investing in a relationship for the sake of investing in the relationship, not to get a return. But we know, because we study what networking activity is, we know that we will get a return. Just like we know if we drop something, we cannot control the impact of what will happen. The law of gravity engages, just like we can't control what happens when we invest in a networking relationship. The law of reciprocity engages.
Yes, and that brings me to that fact that he works and he teaches about the foundation, which is trust. So even coming to that Empire State Building, right? Had it not been the solid foundation, would that building be standing rock solid even now, right? So we need to work on the foundation. And as he was talking about reciprocity, so now whoever I meet and whoever I will continue to meet, who I see or sense that they're struggling with the networking, guess who I'm going to tell them to talk to? Scott, because we have built this strong friendship based on what he has given me and what I have seen him give others constantly, right? And he has earned his reputation because he has had so much experience. Tell us about the book that you have written.
So I'm working on my 3rd book. The first book I wrote was called 5 Weeks to Networking Greatness. And it basically outlines a strategy so that in 5 weeks, you can go to any community, whether you've been there before or not. I travel, I've spent a lifetime in the military service, and so I'm used to being in new environments. When I began to develop my business, I visited different cities, and I still traveled as a traveling salesperson. And when I would go into a new community, I began to notice that there are certain activities that you can do in the networking community. So the first book I wrote was called 5 Weeks to Networking Greatness. And that's a course book, basically, full of worksheets on how you can go into any community and establish yourself as an authority figure in your industry in 5 weeks just through networking, through proper networking activities. And we're not talking about selling, we're talking about networking, creating relationships so that in 5 weeks' time, you are the go-to person for what you do because you've invested in those relationships for 5 weeks, teaching other people how to establish a foundation of good networking. So now that we're all on a good foundation of networking, then that law of reciprocity begins to engage, where they begin to refer their business because they know that I've done so much to help them in their business. So 5 weeks to networking greatness. So I blogged for a year, visiting the various networking groups and giving, they would have me do the educational moment. So they would choose a period of time for 20 minutes, and I would give an educational piece in these networking groups where I would teach something for 20 minutes, and I would have a handout, and they would have some homework. They'd come back the following meeting, and they would discuss it, and I would visit networking groups about every 6 weeks or so and drop in and give an educational moment. So they welcomed that because they wanted to be better networkers. At the end of the year, and then during the week, I would blog about different things each week so they could continue to do that 20-minute educational moment. And at the end of the year, I had 52 blog pieces on how to network better. So I wrote a book called Mastering Networking Greatness. So it was just a natural consequence of 5 weeks to networking greatness, 5 weeks of establishing a foundation, and then Mastering Networking Greatness was a collection of a year's worth of networking in the community of what works and what doesn't work. And literally a scientific approach to what works in relationship building and what I have found through experience doesn't work as well. And so the book I'm working on now is literally about how that makes sense in a selling environment. Because we can't make a living without selling. So where do you make that natural transition from investing in relationships to making sales presentations, and who you should be doing that with and who you don't want to make a sales presentation with? For an example, if I am interested in a business and I want to do a one-on-one with a business owner, the worst thing I could do is give a sales presentation, because I'm missing out on the opportunity to do business with that person's Rolodex or that person's sphere of influence. So if that person mistakes me as a salesperson and I give a sales presentation, instead of investing further in the relationship, then I'm actually hurting my business in the long run. And I'm actually destroying the credibility I may have built over the few weeks in getting that person trusting enough to do a one-on-one. So the book I'm working on now is where you make that transition, where you begin to establish yourself as an authority in the business that you're in versus the authority that you've just established as a professional networker. So you're going to get a lot of attention in networking, and there's actually some strategic things that you could do to get people to point at you and call you out in a networking environment, which gathers more attention, and all of a sudden people are looking at you in a very short amount of time saying, who's this guy? I gotta get to know this guy or this woman. Who's this person? Everybody's talking about this person. Those are specific, intentional networking, relationship building strategies. So every Monday we teach that. Now, the book that I'm working on now is specifically about how you become an authority, how you transfer that halo of credibility that you've just been granted from all of the people that you're networking with. It creates what we call a halo of authority. Now, much like an angel has a halo. When you see a halo on somebody, you know that that person's an angel. So kind of a figurative halo of authority or credibility. How do you transfer that from the networking environment into your profession so that people look at you and say you are an authority in what you do? Based on the relationships that you built in the networking community, it's unquestionable that you are the authority in your field of expertise, in your industry. So the book I'm working on now goes into that very educationally, very scientifically about what works and what doesn't in transferring that halo of credibility into a halo of authority in your industry.
That's what I love. I mean, just sitting beside him, I feel his energy. Every time we are around him, we just feel his positive.
It's the coffee.
That too. And we feel this positive energy and his, yes, let's do it.
Okay,
let's go for it.
Time
okay,
out. I got to say, we were told in the green room that when you come on here, you got to raise up the coffee. This is no prop. This is really good coffee. I will be back to the perfect latte.
Yes, and we'll be bringing back more and more friends because we love supporting local and we love supporting something that's good quality. Everything is about quality of life, quality of relationships. So when he's talking and teaching about relationships, building relationships in business, guess what? It becomes so much more fun because the people that I network with, it feels like I belong there, right? It's about like family. He's like a big brother to me. She's like a soul sister. So we just have fun doing, aligning with our why and doing more and more for the world out there, doing good together.
Most of the people that are probably going to watch this are independent business owners. I don't imagine there's corporate America that's watching something like this. Most of you either know Mo or maybe me or Han, and you've networked here at the Perfect Latte, or it's more of a closer, more intimate business setting rather than a corporate conglomerate.
Home away from home.
And that being said, networking is just like that. The intimacy and the closeness that comes from networking and forming those types of relationships, those bonds in communities are strong. I have witnessed firsthand, and I'm writing about this in my book, I have witnessed industries that the bottom fell completely out. The dot-com industry, for example. I networked and thrived during the dot-com explosion when people were literally and figuratively jumping off of buildings because their business went completely under during the dot-com bust.
Yeah.
But I saw few that networked, and they followed a principle called dig your well before you're thirsty. They dug their well. So they had a well full of rich potential clients that fed them or gave them thirst during the drought when other businesses were failing. And it was interesting because when I was involved in the networking community in the early 80s, in the early 90s, just after the dot-com bust, all of a sudden we started seeing thousands of unemployed software development people showing up at networking groups, trying to give their 30-second commercials, trying to get a piece of business. And guess who the business went to? It went to the developer who was in that group for years. And that sustained his business because they saw the people flooding the networking groups as what they were, wolves, people coming in just to make a sale and get out. And when they found out it didn't work, they labeled networking as not working because it wasn't networking. They were marketing, trying to get freelance work when somebody was already in that group for years, sowing seeds, developing relationships, and guess when they got paid? Business fell out of the sky to keep them in business because they cultivated those relationships long before they were thirsty, long before the bottom fell out of the dot-com industry. So I firsthand watched that and was able to sit ringside and watch as a coach what worked and what didn't work in those strengthening those relationships and how people came together to feed that person who needed business. It was incredible. It was an amazing thing to watch.
That's why we can't wait for his third book to come out because, knowledge is nothing if you don't share with the world. And he has gained all this. So naturally, it's a natural flow, right? You want to share as much to make other people wiser and more knowledgeable. So
they say knowledge is power.
Yes, exactly.
But the application of that knowledge is wealth.
Yes. So
knowledge may be
knowledge
power.
And practice.
But the application of that knowledge is wealth.
Just knowledge without practice is nothing, and just practicing without knowledge is again. So they go hand in hand. I'm so grateful to you for spending this time with us.
I want another coffee before I go.
And again, when we network, the real way, we connect with the right kind of people, the right like-minded people, and we grow together. It becomes fun, and we attract the able, the willing, the people who are already ready, right? So it's fun. Business becomes fun. Business is all about what are you giving to the world? What values are you creating? What are you adding?
And I just got to tell you, if you're not having fun in your business, you're doing it wrong.
Yes.
There's a work part of all of our businesses. There's a work part. There's a roll up the sleeves, get down and dirty, do the up all night, all-nighters, and very little sleep to close that proposal. But the fun part, you need to connect with a networking group so that you can see people on a weekly basis and engage in the fun part of yours. I'm starting to go to a networking group on Fridays. I'm new to the area, relocating to the Sugar Land area, and I've already found my home group, which will be on a Friday at lunch. And it's strategically Friday at lunch because I take Fridays off. If you're in business for yourself and you can't give yourself a 3-day weekend every weekend, you need to begin taking at least a 3-day weekend once a month. And then maybe as you begin developing your business and you block that time out for yourself, I go to a networking meeting on Friday for lunch because that's my time for myself. Not so that I can work, not so I can give a sales pitch, not so I can get leads, but so that I can connect with true friends who are looking out for each other, who has each other's back. And guess what we do after the networking meeting on Friday? We're a block from the movie theater, so we all go to the movies.
So those are true entrepreneurs do that, right? You choose your time, you choose the people you want to work with, when you want to work with, but what is fueling your why? There has to be fun. Your brain loves it when you are having fun, so it pushes you. It keeps on moving you towards your why, right? So guys, keep having fun, do more, make most use of our time. Our time is very limited on this planet. Do good before we go, right?
And treat yourself to a perfect latte.
Yes, self-care. Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
Bye, guys.